We are so fortunate to have Howard Behar as a Skagit neighbor and inspiration. Howard retired from Starbucks after 21 years, where he led the domestic business and was also founding president of Starbucks International. During his tenure, Starbucks grew from 28 stores to over 15,000 stores spanning 5 continents. In addition to serving on multiple boards, Mr. Behar has published 2 amazing books on leadership. It's Not About the Coffee and Magic Cup. Above all, Howard is committed to the development of future leaders and has been a longtime advocate for servant leadership, including as a speaker and mentor for our very own Leadership Skagit. Kati Ortiz is a proud graduate of Leadership Skagit. 20 years ago, Kati and her family created Tri-Parish Food Bank with a mission to be there for others, to listen, and to treat every human being with dignity and respect. As part of her long nonprofit history, Kati currently works with the College Success Foundation, supporting the educational pathway of students who have been in foster care or experienced homelessness. Ms. Ortiz is a mentor for the Latino Leadership Initiative, a board member for the Latino Civic Alliance, and a legislative leader for the Washington State Low-Income Housing Alliance. She has also been recognized by the U.S. Forest Service International Program for her work connecting Latinx youth to conservation. Above all, Kati is passionate about creating a community where all people feel they belong and can thrive. Kati and Howard, we are so fortunate to have you with us tonight.
Howard, I'm excited to begin our conversation. I feel like we have a lot in common. We were both influenced by our families. You began working at your father's market in Seattle, and I began helping my parents at the food bank as a child. We both believe in giving until it hurts and the concept of servant leadership. So I read that you were looking for a place to work where dreams and success were the same, and it turned out to be Starbucks. Can you tell us about the 3 human beings that came to be known as H2O at Starbucks? How did you all start your life?
Well, the most interesting thing about the 3 of us, there was 2 Howards and an Orrin, and that's how H2O came about. And Howard Schultz came from a very poor family raised in outside of Brooklyn, New York, in a place called Canarsie. And his father, the biggest job he ever had was as a diaper delivery truck driver, and he got hurt on the job and had no insurance. And so Howard learned from a very early age the meaning of not having any resources to help when your family was in trouble. Orrin Smith was raised in Chehalis, Washington. Most people will know, a farming community, kind of like the Valley is. And he had a single mother, head of household, 5 children with a father that had left the family, and his mother had to support all the kids. And so here's Orrin, who was the oldest, having to make sure that the rest of the kids got what they needed. And then me, I was raised by 2 immigrant parents that both came to Seattle in the early 1900s, and my father worked at the Pike Place Market actually in 1911 as a 15-year-old. And he taught me the value of hard work, and they survived the Depression. So we came from not much. What we had in my family was food on the table. The produce might have been a little bruised and brown, and we didn't always have the freshest of fruit, but we always had food on the table. And so the 3 of us really came to Starbucks believing the same thing, that it was supporting people and serving people that really mattered in the work that we did. And that's what drove Starbucks right from the beginning. It was always about the people and always about finding ways to serve the people. We wanted to be able to walk down the hallway in Starbucks and look at everybody in the face and say that we were all in it together. And that's how we built the company. That's how it's run today.
Absolutely. I'm the oldest of 6 siblings myself, and I know what that's like, making sure that I can take care of my younger siblings, and my parents just always tried their best to make sure that we had food on the table, even if it was just rice and beans. But to this day, I still love just having a bowl of beans, and sometimes my siblings joke about that.
It's the basic things that make us the happiest.
It's the basic things, yes, that's right. So what did servant leadership look like at Starbucks? How did that get started?
Well, I had been introduced to servant leadership. A man named Robert Greenleaf, who was the head of organizational development at AT&T in the 40s and 50s, wrote a little, when he retired, he wrote a little booklet called The Servant is Leader, or The Leader is Servant, excuse me. And he drove that concept, and he came to the conclusion after all his research that the leaders that did the best were those that understood intrinsically that they were there to serve their people, not be served by their people. And so that's what I brought to Starbucks, was this idea that, you know, if we were really going to grow our organization, that first thing we had to focus on was helping our people grow and helping our people get what they wanted out of their lives before they could really help the organization and grow. And that's what servant leadership is basically all about. It's making sure that you as a leader are doing the things that are necessary to help your people become all that they can be. And in so doing, they help the organization be all it can be. And it's that old, you know, we help each other along the way. But you, as a leader, you have to be the first one to put out the hand and say, I'm here to help you. And that's what we did.
I remember hearing about Starbucks being tested, that one of their employees was facing a health crisis. Can you tell us about that? How did that experience define the values of Starbucks?
Well, I had just joined Starbucks. I was actually there about 3 months, and I got a call from a store manager named Jim who ran one of our stores in Seattle. And he called me up and he said, Howard, I'd like to come see you and the other Howard, Howard Schultz. And I said, sure, Jim, what is it about? You know, I was trying to be the good executive, good leader, and trying to figure out what he wanted before he came. And he said, well, I just need to see the two of you, and I'll tell you when I get there. So I set up the meeting with Howard Schultz and myself, and the day arrived, and Jim came to the front desk, and they called me, and I went down and got him, and we went up to Howard Schultz's office. And Howard Schultz had a little love seat in his office, and both Jim and I sat next to each other, and Howard happened to be on the phone. And so we're waiting for him to get off the phone, and we were making small talk, and finally Howard hung up the phone, and we started talking. And so, being an A-type personality, I said to him, hey, Jim, so what can we do for you? Trying to get to, you know, what he wanted.
Get to the point.
He get to the point, you know, which I was kind of sorry I did after I did that. And he said, well, I need to tell you both something. I'm dying of AIDS. Now, in those days, you know, these were really early days. This was in the late 80s. People didn't know a lot about AIDS. We really didn't know that much. You know, was it a virus that just transmitted by sitting next to somebody? And I remember to myself, you know, I don't think I consciously did it, but subconsciously maybe I slid over just a hair, you know, because of that insureness. And so Howard Schultz asked Jim, well, what does that mean? What can we do for you? He said, well, I'd like to work as long as I can work, and I don't know how long that will be, but I really need to work, you know, to support myself. And now remember, Starbucks was in the food service business, and Starbucks was this little tiny company in those days, 28 stores when I started. And he just looked at Jim and he said, Jim, you can work as long as you feel healthy enough to work. And when you stop working, when you feel you can't work anymore, then we will still go on supporting you. We will pay your full salary as long as you're alive. And remember, this company was losing money in those days, so it wasn't like it was going to break us, but we had no idea what it was going to cost. And then Howard asked Jim a question. He said, Jim, how are you going to cover your health insurance when you're no longer working? And Jim said, well, there's some agencies around that are helping people like me that have contacted AIDS, and they're there to help. And Howard said, absolutely not. You'll be on our health insurance again until the day you die. We're here to help you. Now, you put it in the context. For me, I'm there 3 months. Now, I believed in servant leadership and helping people. That's how I got to Starbucks. Howard Schultz had that in common. The two of us had that in common. But when Howard did that, he was a very young guy at the time. Howard was like 33 at the time. When Howard did that, that told me, really reinforced that I was in the right place. That was the kind of place that I wanted to be, where you would do what it took to help another human being, even if it cost you. See, a lot of people say, I really care, but very few people really do the things that mean that you care. And that means sometimes you've got to take your own resources and give them to another human being. And that experience went throughout the company. Everybody heard about it. Everybody understood it, and it became part of the myth of Starbucks that we will do anything to help another human being. And I can't tell you how many times we spent company resources to tell somebody that was sick, where one of our people, we even had store manager give a kidney to a customer once because they needed it. And we encourage those kind of things because we were there to help other human beings. And so that little experience taught me right away that I could do anything that I needed to do to serve another human being within inside of Starbucks. A very valuable experience. And a humbling one, to say the least. I can't even imagine. Yeah.
I can't even imagine going into that room and having to explain that to you, saying, you know, I've already thought about how I'm going to handle this and I just want to let you know, and then getting a response so unexpected and so life-changing.
Yeah, I don't think he ever thought that's what was going to happen. I think he thought, well, he won't be able to work. But here we said, you're going to work as long as you can work, and we'll take care of you when you can't. And it was, I think that was one of those things that had such a huge impact on the company. It's really lasted forever.
So one of the things that's the most important for community action is to listen deeply, especially to those whose voices might be silenced, and then respond in service. In your book, It's Not About the Coffee, you have 10 principles. One is to listen for the truth. What do you mean by this principle?
Well, listen for the truth means that you have to listen with more than your ears. And you have to go in not knowing and being a great listener. Too often we go in listening and we already have formed opinions about something somebody is saying, and we can't wait until we're able to get our opinion back out, versus just being quiet and listening and really absorbing what that person is saying to you. Because their truth might be different than our truth. We might face the same exact issue and come out with a different truth. And so we have to understand where they are, not where we think they should be. And so listening for the truth is that being quiet, quieting your brain, and being fully engaged with that other human being. Not knowing the answer, just being willing to open your ears and also to open your brain to what they're saying, and opening your heart primarily.
Tonight's event is called Spirit of Hope, and giving hope is the most essential way community action seeks to serve. How can I, as one person, help others find hope? And Howard, this is a big question. In other words, how do you eat an elephant?
One bite at a time. One little bite at a time. You can't solve the whole. You have to take the issue and break it into pieces. I mean, and we see it all over the world. When it's done that way, we're able to solve problems. When we get overwhelmed by the largeness of the issue, then we freeze and we get the word that you use, fear. Fear comes out of us. We can't, and the words come into our head, oh, we just can't get that done. But there is nothing that we can't do together, not one single thing that we can't solve. We can solve homelessness, we can solve food deprivation, we can solve the issues that are facing us, and we can't be afraid. Sometimes we're afraid, well, we'll never have the money to do all that, or we're going to have to raise taxes, or we're going to have to do all that stuff. Sure, we'll have to all contribute a little bit more, but none of us are going to get hurt because of it. None of us are going to not be able to support ourselves because of it. And we just have to be willing to work with the organizations in our communities to help them achieve what they need to achieve, and make sure that we're getting the results that we need to get. And not looking at the people that need the help with that they're not deserving, but looking at them with love in your heart and understanding that they too are deserving. And we can do it. There's nothing we can't do, and that's what this organization is all about. And we're going to produce the results that we need to do in the communities in which we operate, and I'm proud to be a part of it.
Right. And I heard you once say that once we offer that support, the commitment does not end there. It's just the beginning.
That's right.
What's the story behind that? What's your experience with this?
Well, just talking, it doesn't do the job, right? We can go to the meetings and we can say, yes, I agree, yes, but we got to take the time. We got to give the time. And we got to give, if we don't have time and we have a little bit of resource, doesn't take a lot, we got to give that help with the resources. But you have to step up. You know, you always hear, you know, companies are always saying, well, we really care about our people. But caring only matters if you do something. Talk is cheap. Action is what makes things happen. And you don't have to be the leader of anything. You can be a great follower and a great supporter and take little steps in helping your community be better. And it's by supporting your nonprofits with resources, with encouragement, with you know, talking to your neighbors. Don't let anything go unsaid when it needs to be said. And together we can accomplish it.
It's really listening again, like you keep saying,
Right.
and finding out how you can really make a difference. So one of the most important roles for community action is to change our community's attitudes and approaches towards people experiencing poverty and homelessness and hunger, amongst other issues. And how do we build a society rooted in love and equity? What would our community look like?
Well, for me, it would look like where we have enough introspection that we could understand that there but for the grace of God go I. That any one of us at any time could hit the wall. You could get cancer, right? And you could have all the money in the world, but you've got cancer. There's nothing going to save you except for hopefully doctors can help you. You could lose your job. Things could be going along and all of a sudden, and you're paying all your bills and you're doing everything, and all of a sudden you don't have a job. And that's happening to a lot of people today. Or look at COVID, right? I mean, people that, you know, living a healthy life, and all of a sudden, you know, they breathe in from somebody else that's sick, and before you know it, they're in the hospital on a ventilator and they don't live. And the family is decimated. Never saw it coming. So anything can happen at any time. And we have to understand that we are as vulnerable as the next guy. We can't be judges here. We have to be participants in this world in which we live. And it's so easy to say the words I care, but then not take the actions that really mean that you care. And, you know, that's what's going to make the difference, is what you do. Again, not what you say. And I just think that, you know, I have a responsibility to help the communities in which I live, and even broader than the communities in which I live. You know, we have a group of students, for undocumented students that are going to the universities now. We have 14 students. About half of them are in Walla Walla, and half of them are in the valley, and to help them do things. And because we looked at the issue and we said, we have to participate. We can't just avoid it. If we're going to have a better society for all of us, then we have to help the people that are in need and the people that are struggling with whatever it happens to be. And that's my opinion. Don't just talk. And everybody wants to have a better life. And everybody wants to be treated with respect and dignity. Everybody wants to grow as human beings. Everybody wants to love and be loved. And, you know, I think as a community and as people, our major role in life is to try to help people have those things. Everybody.
How do we make that happen? How do we look back and say, you know, what I'm doing every day, or what I'm doing on the weekends, what I'm doing in my work, it's all for positive change, that what I'm doing for my community is actually making a difference in people's lives? What do we look at to guide our way?
Well, I think you have to evaluate yourself every day. I have a mission statement that goes like this. Every day I want to nurture and inspire the human spirit, beginning with myself first and then others. And the reason why I say self first is what I've learned is if I'm not okay with me, it's very difficult to help another human being. And so, you know, but I try to nurture and inspire the human spirit every day, no matter what it is. Sometimes it's just picking up a piece of paper off the street, contributing to my community by making the street a little cleaner. Can you imagine if everybody in Bellingham or Mount Vernon or Burlington saw a piece of paper or a can and picked it up and put it in the garbage? We'd never have anything on the streets. It'd always be clean. And so it's taking the actions that are necessary to make things happen. And that's how it works in life. And you have to, that mission statement, you know, drives my life. And everybody, you don't all have to have a personal mission statement, but you have to have a belief in why you're here, what you're here to do, what you're here to accomplish. And it has to be bigger than you. It's got to be something that draws you towards it. A purpose in life that is bigger than just fulfilling your own needs. Helping others get what they need out of life. And if you can do that, even if it's just a little tiny bite, even if it's going to the food bank and dropping off a bag of groceries, even if it's only giving $5 to one of your local organizations, even if it's going to the school and helping some young child learn how to read, even if it's supporting some undocumented student that needs a little help, maybe needs a little coaching, even if it means going over to your neighbor's house when they're struggling with something and maybe cooking a meal because they're sick. Anything. Do something to help another human being. Serve others, because at the end of the day, the only reason any of us are put on this earth is to serve other human beings. And so we have to try to do that every day, even if it's in just a small, tiny way.
Mm-hmm. What advice would you leave community action, its staff, volunteers, and supporters today?
Believe in what you're doing, number one. Understand that the journey is long, it's arduous. You're not going to get everything done. But believe in the greater purpose of what you're trying to accomplish and stay with it. Never give up. Even when you get setbacks. What's the dance of life? 2 steps forward, 1 step back? That's the way that it is. That's the dance of life. You get 2 steps forward, you're always going to be a step that's going to come back. But you got to keep in the dance, stay in the dance. Do the things that you need to do to move it forward, and believe. And keep continuing to care about the people that you're serving, and you'll make it happen eventually. And if it isn't you, it'll be the person that comes along behind you. And you'll have left a foundation for them to achieve more on. And that's how the world works. It's not just what we do, it's a foundation that we build for the next person to stand on that makes a difference. So I certainly am proud of what the organization is doing and what it's accomplished and what it will continue to accomplish. So my advice, stay with it.
Thank you, Howard, for your continued support, for being a leader in our community. As a girl who spends her Saturdays volunteering, reflecting, and having rich conversations rooted in honesty, I can say you have given me so much hope. I admire you deeply, and I thank you for your continued support to our community. It really means the world to us.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you to our audience at home for joining us for this conversation. I hope you feel as inspired as I do about making a difference, starting with one act of servant leadership at a time. As a reminder, you can easily donate by clicking the link below, and that we've also dropped in the YouTube chat.